Bonjour, Jenna Suru. Aujourd'hui, pour la radio du cinéma, j'ai l'honneur d'accueillir l'un des deux fondateurs et le CEO gérant du festival du Cinéquest qui se tient en Californie, au cœur de la Silicon Valley, Halfdan Hussey. Bonjour, Halfdan. Hello.
Bonjour. Good morning, good evening. How are you?
All is well in beautiful Paris. And thank you so much for taking the time for this incredible edition announcement to come. I mean, in the heart of a Silicon Valley, where we somehow are all set, at least as far as social media or the virtual world starts, there is also a festival that you funded with your co-founder, Kathleen J. Powell. And I want to ask you today, Halfdan, art and science were the words for you both when you started the festival, and it was set for incredible creativity and art. I want to ask you today, in 2024, and for the upcoming edition, both virtual and in person to come in San Jose mostly, how much do you think that international co productions are impacting the landscape that filmmakers have on hand today?
Well, international productions in general and co-productions have been the heart and soul of what we call Maverick cinema. We don't use the term independently produced. We like the word Maverick. That's been our theme from day one. You talked about the power of technology and innovation as well as the arts. And we love people that do something that comes from their heart, that comes from their experience and their creative minds and spirits. And that usually does not fit into any mold. And thus we like the term maverick. So when you think of the great mavericks that have really driven cinema forever, as far as I'm concerned, since the 20s, 1920s, not the 2020s, you're talking about international folks from around the globe. And Cinequest has always been about global and inclusiveness, both within the United States as well as around the globe. How can cinema, how can the power of technology democratize people everywhere to tell their story, to give voice to their feelings and their experience, to not uh, put one of the experiences into a special cauldron and the others, kicked out. How can you include different ways of thinking, different political thoughts, different cultures and races, different ways of life? That's the power of great film festivals in general. And for us, it becomes the film festival meets technology as well, because technology is a democratized neutral tool. It's nothing more than that, but it gives people more opportunity usually to access and tell stories. And now we're dealing with AI. You mentioned the heart of where we're at. This is a big deal for us because we're epicenter here of AI, and it has many positive potentialities as well as many things that could go wrong that people are very scared about right now. So we have to deal with both sides of that equation.
Harrison Ford was amongst your recipients for the Maverick Award a couple editions ago, and it was a beautiful speech. I thought it was beautifully put, the power of inspiration. And among recipients, also Elle Fanning, and there is also a separate award that goes to a scientist, may I say, like Martin Cooper, the father of the cell phone. So was that something you had in mind since you created the festival to make sure that they would be both ways together, but also sometimes separate?
That's right. I mean, we started because you mentioned inspiration. We were inspired. The co-founder Kathleen Powell and I, we were in engineering and math and fell in love with movies and the power of that art form. So I left the math and engineering and to do film, and made an independent film right out of college here. And it happened to get very fortunate and blessed by the Venice Film Festival showcasing it. So I had the experience, and my co-founder Kathleen, of seeing the globe come together in a place and seeing that and having that amazing opportunity to gather and to share around the common interest of film. And we said, okay, we want to do this. We don't just want to produce movies. We want to do something and give this back to others. Where could we do it that would be different? Silicon Valley. I didn't grow up here, but I loved it. I loved Northern California, San Jose, San Francisco, the diverse community that lives here, international community, and this thing called technology and innovation. So that became the heart and soul of Cinequest, where we would have cinema meets technology. When we started it, it was about the digital film revolution in making films and distributing films, then mobile cinema, then creative and alternative ways of making film, then VR and AR, and now AI. So this has always been in the DNA of Cinequest, and that inspiration that hits a mind like Steve Wozniak's or Marty Cooper or a great artist to do something many times requires a tremendous amount of passion and persistence to go along with that inspiration. I mean, it took Marty Cooper 40 years to convince people that the cell phones were viable. They told him that the maximum market for cell phones, mobile phones, would be 5 million people globally. They were off a little bit. There's over 17.9 billion devices, mobile devices around the globe right now. So, he had to fight for years for that. And many times artists, as you know, take 3, 4, 5, 10 years to complete it, sometimes longer to complete some passion project of theirs. And they have to stick to it. Harrison Ford's a great example of a filmmaker who integrated technology with film. I mean, there's in Star Wars, as we know, there's tons of technological integrations with that storytelling. And not only in the making of the film, but in the actual storyline itself. What is Darth Vader, half machine, half human? The first AI, example. So you look at how these storytellers are so ahead of the game, things inside of them that they're inspired to tell. And I didn't think of Vader as being an AI symbol, but in many ways he is, because he's powerful and strong and he can do things that other people and beings cannot. But he has the dark side of the force too. So you have to be very, very careful. You don't want these forces to be misused. And that's also the power of media in general. We come up with these great things called filmmaking. It was technology that allowed it to occur. And then who uses that? Who uses television and social media? And what is their narrative? And we see so much divisiveness in it. But a great film artist can do just the opposite. They lift our hearts. They many times deal with tough subjects, but they leave us in the end feeling, wow, it's great to be alive on this planet and we can do a lot of great things together.
This previous edition, and I don't mean to get philosophical now that we're talking about creativity, but I felt so philosophical when I was attending your festival. As we say in France, it's la technique, like it's just massively supporting art, because at some point it's also about science. It's also about the material that you use and the talent that you bring in and that just get together to share these incredible new stories. And AI is somehow exciting. The strike was a problem. What is the new perspective for you this year? Are you integrating new options with a virtual edition? I know your engineers are working really hard on this.
The virtual edition is really interesting because we did the first uh, Internet Film Festival in 2005-07, when it was really being laughed at. We really enjoyed that. And it came in handy when the pandemic came along because we were able to say, okay, how can we engineer something that just isn't streaming festival movies? And we've been working on that challenge because, it's impossible to replicate the experience of being in Cannes or any of the great places in the globe where you have a festival and you come together as human beings in a place. Okay, but how can you use the advantages of the internet and the virtual space and bring elements of what you get in the live experiences to the virtual and use the advantages of it, which it doesn't have constraints. People can gather with friends from around the globe and they don't have to be in one place at one time. So, the virtual part is really important to us in terms of AI and what we're doing with that. We're playing a role more of thought leadership right now. We're creating, which I think will be a benchmark town hall. In the United States, we love these town hall concepts with politicians, and they're usually extremely boring, where you get some politician on stage and they round up some members of the community and, pretend to take questions from them. No, we're going to do a pretty cool one here where we have panels of leading thought leaders in the space of AI. And, ground central from this really has been the Stanford Research Institute and Palo Alto and the companies that have emerged here. OpenAI, some have been acquired by other companies, but so, how do we look at not only for a community? And so we're creating a thought leadership town hall that will be a role model for communities, cities around the United States and the globe to do these things, because we need people to address the pros and cons of AI. Is this going to eliminate jobs or provide jobs? Is it going to create massive plagiarism in the world of education, or lighten up the minds of youth with more opportunities and research than they've ever had? Is it going to destroy the capacity of a writer to own their their work or their television episodes, because some producer is going to say, I don't need you anymore and I've got a better machine than you to create season 2, 3, and 4? Or is it going to be a great tool for that writer in helping them to do a better job with their storylines and their season arcs? And so pretty much with every one of these elements with AI, are the machines going to take over the globe, or are they going to be, as a lot of people call them here, our second brain? And which I think is a pretty cool metaphor for, how AI could be a very helpful resource to all of us. So the creative world is very important in this conversation, because many people think that the real test of consciousness, which is the difference between a human or spiritual being in a human body, however you look at it, and a machine that can think like us, is the consciousness, the awareness. And the artist has that. Comedians have it. Comedians can make us laugh in ways that machines can't. So we'll be doing some normal things with this AI town hall that you might expect, talking about, why is Bill Gates so afraid of it? Why did the AI leader from Google leave the company? What are the events? But then things you might not think about, like we're thinking about doing a competition between a stand-up comedian and an AI comedian. Can a machine that goes through all the jokes that it has at its fingertips, spit them out to an audience and make them laugh? Or does it require the consciousness of the comedian to really feed off of the energy of who's there? Things like this are very interesting to me, and they integrate the creative spirit into the conversation with the machine.
As Cinequest has no longer to prove, it's mostly about talent. And your festival also has reputedly cheered for women. It's very sad in France. Sometimes in a class of 44 engineers, there are only 4 females, and that's when you're lucky. In terms of films, and that could be with AI or without AI, how much do you support multi-generational films? How much do you think that including talent of any age behind the camera can support your initiative and just everything that you've just said?
Well, you mentioned the inclusiveness and empowerment of women and gender to the equation, and then we've been very proud of being an inclusive organization from day one, even before mandates. It's just been part of our DNA, and I don't know why it is. It just is. But we've seen some really exciting improvements in that space. We used to maybe program 5% to 10% female directors and producers. Of course, actresses and actors have always been equal. But then, the past 5 to 10 years, we program more women directors and producers, a majority than male. A lot of that is because they've gained access and the opportunity to make their films, because we have a quality standard. So we won't do a quota programming, so to speak. We're not going to put in, unless it's really needed to change the equation. But we've had such amazing women directors and producers and artists and writers, of course, over the last decade that it's been very easy for us to program more women than men. And we're proud of it. We're also proud of the fact that we've had a really incredible diverse representation of global thinking, cultures, races, gender, sexual orientations for decades. So, and again, it's natural for film to be a leader in this because film gives everybody voice as long as they can afford to do it. So, that is a really cool thing about not just Cinequest, but all film festivals in general, I think, just do such a great job of providing this diverse voice. What's going to come next, and will AI provide more opportunity for people or less, it's still to be determined. I think it really is. But I don't know why we still have, and I talk to women leaders here in the Silicon Valley, and they're still dealing with so many issues of breaking through. And, we had in 2020, racism reared its ugly head here in America in a really nasty way again. Well, we thought that stuff was kind of behind us. Of course, you knew some people had it in their hearts. But, so some of these things have just, we thought we were further along. And I think that we have to go and understand we weren't as far along as we thought. Women are still breaking through into opportunity. I just had a friend who's a leader in the financial world, somebody tell her, top line executive, well, you should really spend more time with your family and not worry about all these promotions. I mean, to me, I was just so shocked that a male leader would tell somebody that. It was just to talk to them about their personal life on the workplace. It's just so, but this is how people still think. So I think that we have to be open-eyed here and realize that, yeah, there's still a long ways to go. I thought there was a short ways to go on some of these issues, but there aren't. We have longer way to go with women gaining their fair share of access, empowerment, and respect in all walks of professional life and creative life. And these institutes like Cinequest are very important with that narrative, and we can't just talk about it. We can't just talk about these things. You have to do it. So I'm proud that now I can point to, hey, we happen to have a track record in this area, so it's nice. But then you can encourage other people to do it as well. And the power structures of film have always been, you mentioned international cinema, which has had a little, I don't know really, I don't make films out of France or out of Switzerland or Germany or out of Hong Kong. So I don't really know exactly what the access is. But without question, in the United States, I can speak to the fact that the gatekeepers are still very strong. There aren't that many for the films that have major and big time distribution in terms of have more audience access. There's still a lot of gatekeepers. And if those gatekeepers are not forward thinking or inclusive and fair, then of course they're going to, lean towards folks that are like them in terms of thinking and, culture and the way they do things. So we have a ways to go. And we've come a long ways, but it's, yeah.
You have a really exciting media launch party at the very end of the month. Will it be too soon to address some of the themes? Maybe sports, maybe over arts. After all, it's about creativity, so that should be inclusive of many arts, not only film.
Yes, well, we changed the name from Film and VR Festival, Film and Creativity Festival a few years ago so that we could embrace other forms of creativity, which be it a poets, writers, the VR and AR I mentioned has been a big thing for us, comedic dance performers, other ways, musicians. It's a wonderful opportunity because we gather people together around these film premieres, and then wow, let's also showcase other art forms and creative forms, and we always do technology as it meets media, that too. One thing that we have done annually that we couldn't do during the pandemic, which we were shut down for quite a while with the in-persons, and then it threw off our schedule, but we're back to doing silent cinema. And when we do silent cinema, we have these the David Woodley Packard and his foundation provide this for us, and these master organists, Dennis James and Jerry Nagano, who create the second element of the experience, The first is the visual element. You're watching this masterful silent films, but then you're having a live score, and he's doing it with the classic Wurlitzer organ, and he explains the stories by it's unbelievable. So you have this integration of arguably the most innovative film we've ever seen, silent cinema. I mean, it doesn't get more innovative than that. They created the language that most people still use with film, and very, very powerful visual filmmaking. And then you put into that, you have live performance from a master organist, and it's an incredible experience. It's spine tingling. We've got a double feature this year with The Mark of Zorro and a Buster Keaton movie. So our theme is uplift. So that I didn't mention. So these experiences with silent cinema and with music and getting people together in a beautiful theater, very powerful and uplifting to their hearts. Especially a lot of people right now are, in California terms, bummed out. You know, it's been, they're tired of dealing with some of these things. In America, we've got a contentious political year ahead of us again. We've seen, terrorism rear its ugly head around the globe again. The economies, all the stuff that weighs on people's hearts, the pandemic residue, all these things. So when you have artists, they don't ignore these issues, but they transform them and they create powerful experiences for us, sometimes through good laughs, sometimes through powerful music, sometimes through transformative cathartic experiences. But there's no time more important for the cinema and the other art forms than when folks aren't doing well. So we have this theme uplift, use the power of art and cinema and creativity to really help people.
We certainly do love our cinemas in France, and I would like to ask you if you do believe in cinema being a family for
Being
change and
family.
new stories.
Yeah, so a cinema and all of its functionalities in person and also, internet driven. But I do feel that it's a change force. It's has been for a long time. It allows us to see and open our hearts and minds and heal when there's troubles. We talked a bit about inclusiveness. How can you change a global perspective without utilizing the power of media to give them the stories and the experiences of other people? We can't all just travel around the globe every day and jump into people's houses and live their lives with them. But what we can do is we can experience their feelings and thoughts and perspectives and experiences through the power of art. And cinema, I think, does it as well as anything. And books and all other forms of cinema, we can see and understand and gain empathy. And those things are incredibly important for transformation. So, and cinema, what I love about film festivals and what's really exciting, when I was able to go to more, running them now and that type of thing and producing, but is that, geez, I would just get so excited about going into a great film festival like Cannes or Venice or Toronto, or when you name them, Sundance, any of them, any festival, great festival, international festivals. And wow, with it, I would watch 4 or 5 movies a day, and I would be in all kinds of different worlds. One minute I'd be in Vietnam with some kids. Next minute I'd be with some old folks in Brussels. Then I'd be, over here in Spain. Then I'd be down in South America. And all these different perspectives I would gain. And I was young, and I grew up in a, pretty poor family. We never traveled at all. We couldn't afford it. So cinema was my way of traveling when I was in my early 20s. Like, wow, I can access all these worlds through books and cinema. And so I might not be traveling around. I don't have the budget for that, but I can get an understanding of how folks feel. And cinema, I think, books are better maybe historically, and cinema is so great with, what's going on in the world today, over the last decade. And it's fantastic, be it documentaries or dramas or comedies, to get that access. So yeah, it's incredibly important. And I didn't know when you mentioned the love in France of cinema, that also meant going to the cinema, which I think there's something to be said. We were very afraid in America that when digital film access came, IP delivery and watching things in our home, and maybe the experience of going to cinema would go away, but that hasn't really been the case at all. The pandemic did definitely hurt that, but people still need the social experience. So whether they're watching a film and streaming something at home, they still need to get together or to go even by themselves, as I used to do, into a cinema where there's other people and you're experiencing something with them. And that's incredibly important just in film going in general, but especially in the festivals. I mean, that's what we do. That's why we're doing them where otherwise it would be all virtual and but the in-person, it's about gathering together.
And even sometimes through your virtual platform, we can also gather as we love to do during the pandemic when there was just no other option for all of us to connect.
Yes, and we're working more and more on how we can share an experience through the virtual with people that we know and don't know. And we're getting there with that. And it's very exciting because we have two different aspects of our virtual. One is what you might expect, you know, screening, showing movies virtually, but the other is the live experiences, and we call them spotlight events. And we have a really unique experience for those. And we're building in more and more group sharing opportunities with those. So, and as we become more sophisticated over time with virtual technologies and experiences, and they're more immersive, this will become more and more exciting for people to do it. So to me, both are important. I mean, I was very shocked in the pandemic in a good way to see, wow, when we do the festival in Silicon Valley, we have a lot of great people there for sure, representing different ways of life. But wow, when we're doing virtual, we have every 50 United States, every state from the United States, and 57 to 60 countries participating. This is really fantastic. And then the other thing that amazed me was I expected, Gen Z, younger people to adapt to it quick. The older community adapted slow, but they ended up loving it. Some of them, the older folks that couldn't get out of their house were particularly, and they said, please don't stop doing this. It's hard for us to get out now. We're a little bit older, or somebody with a disability. So I never thought of serving people that can't get to the cinema through the virtual. That wasn't, but then we learned, wow, that's really a wonderful byproduct of what we're doing here. And other folks had said, hey, I'll come back and go to the live experience for sure, but I really love the virtual as well. I hope so I think that they both, those experiences offer different benefits. And thus technology, again, you could just always say it's bad because it always is going to do something disruptive. They always do, all the technologies. And unfortunately, some people's works go away, but there's also good things that can come of them. And, so when we could deliver films to the internet, to people's homes in a way where they could watch them at really high quality, as I mentioned, did that destroy going to cinemas? No, it didn't. And it didn't destroy the film festivals. In fact, they did better. But because people still need social, and thus back to the AI conversation, what are we going to do with this? And we can't ignore AI. And AI is a different technology. It's not as its potential for harm is much greater than the other technologies I mentioned. Hi, sweetie. That's why we have to really, really address this. In a way, it has the same potentials and for good and bad as nuclear. If you look at that, maybe more potential for good because nuclear energy didn't end up being all we thought it would be, but certainly was a technology that had to be harnessed, and there was policy making, global policy making required of this day to make sure that we didn't do it again, drop the bomb on people. So that is kind of like AI. It's this incredible potential that could help humankind everywhere in every way, or it could get in the wrong hands and people can really use it in disastrous ways. So we have to address it and work with it because it's not going to go away at this point.
The power of empowerment is shared globally, and you can witness it by yourself at the end of the month at the Tetra Hotel with the release media party that you're launching with Cinequest, and later this year, both in person and or San Jose and virtually all over the globe. Halfdan, merci.
Thank you so much, Merci. And I deeply appreciated everything you do. And thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you.